Alaskans, wherever you are, welcome to the Must Read Alaska Show. Coming to you from somewhere in Alaska. This is the place where we talk about, you guessed it, Alaska. Where we keep the mainstream media on their toes and where we are standing up for what's right in a world run by leftists. You can find out more by heading over to mustreadalaska.com and also checking out the Must Read Alaska YouTube channel for some really great content. But first, let's get this party started.
Welcome, everybody, to the Must Read Alaska Show. I'm your host, John Quick, coming to you live from somewhere in Alaska. And man, everybody's kids are back in school, and I hope that parents are happy as a clam because not only are your kids back in school, but it's sunny out. It's amazing. We had a very special thing happen here in Alaska this last week. The Secretary of Transportation was here in Alaska hanging out with multiple folks, one of them being Mayor Dave Bronson. I have him on the show today. Welcome to the show, Mayor Dave Bronson. And how was it having the Secretary of Transportation here in Alaska?
Well, first, John, it is a beautiful day. I'm sitting here on the 8th floor of my office, looking out at the mountain range, the Alaska Range, McKinley. It's beautiful, a really beautiful day. And to all the parents out there, happy back to school day. And you know what I mean by that. So you can relax a little bit. We're going to get back into routines with the kids, which is a great thing. We went through that as parents, and now our kids are grown. But yeah, we did have a great visit with the secretary. Real smart guy, good guy, great team, bunch of real smart young people that he brought with. We got our message across. They said very well. They says, message received, Mr. Mayor. And so we communicated to him and to his staff how important the Port of Alaska is to 90% of the people in Alaska who get their get their food and all of their supplies and their vehicles and everything we use in 90% of it comes over this port. And this port is in dire need of repair. The first piling went in 1959. They're at the end of their life, and they're in fact, you can go to my Facebook page, and there's a QR code there that you can click on. It'll show a 3 to 4 minute video, and that video we took last week at our extremely low tides to show how much jeopardy the port is. We have about a little over 1,400 pilings in the port. And during the earthquake of 2018, 20% of them failed, and we had to go back in and repair them. We can't repair anymore. We've done the only thing we can do is put a clamshell bolt-on reinforcement on it. We can't do that again. It's a one-time deal, and now we're in trouble. And again, 90% of the people in the state are fed by this port. And at some point here in an earthquake or a bad docking of a ship, too hard of a docking, it's going to fail. And as we rebuild our port and the docks, we will get to hopefully seismic security here by not later than early 2028. But right now, we don't have food security. We just don't. So we're asking the federal government, the DOT, and other agencies. We're going back to ask the Department of Defense help on this, because that dock supports the Arctic strategy, which is the core of our military strategy here in Alaska. And quite frankly, the good taxpayers of Anchorage and simply cannot afford to pay for national defense needs. And so there is a federal ask here. The Secretary Buttigieg was extremely receptive. He asked incredibly insightful questions, and we answered them to our best of our ability. And they said message received. So we did our best, and we did a good job.
That's awesome. So I think this is what separates good leaders from great leaders, being able to work with somebody that you may not agree with wholeheartedly. And I think this is where you and your team have shown to be great leaders. Talk to me a little bit about working with the Biden administration, even though you may disagree on things. Is it important for you all to come together for an issue like this?
Well, it's essential for the good of the state that we do come together to this one party can't solve a challenge of this magnitude and a threat to the survivability of our state to this degree. We've got to come together, and Assembly leadership was there with us. There's no daylight between how they look at this project and how we look at this project. We've come together, made great progress in approving design and surcharge structures that'll impact us for the next 70 years, the life cycle of this new port facility. So my desperate hope is we get one seismically secure dock. We're building two. We have to have two eventually, but one. If we can get to that by early 2028, we've closed the gap. We'll have food security, and that's all it's about. So at times you got to put the politics aside, and you got to get down to work of governing, because politics is more electoral, and then governing is the running of the business, and that's the mode we're in. We're in the mode of building the things that we need and doing what's right for the people of Alaska, and specifically Anchorage.
So give us a little bit of a peek under the hood. 99% of the people didn't get to have a conversation with the Secretary of Transportation. Tell us a little bit about him and maybe a fun story that you had with him while you were in Anchorage.
Well, it was pretty business oriented. They run a tight schedule. We kept to their schedule. We were complimented, by the way, of sticking with their schedule. They said that doesn't happen very often. People run long because everybody wants a piece of the big guy, and the secretary's the big guy. But I had some one-on-one time with him. I actually made some asks that are more aviation related as well. When we were on the bus, there's some asks that really impact us. The port asks, we asked for a 60-40 split. That's a traditional split. The federal government picks up 60%, and we pick up 40%, us in the state, and on the funding of it, and that's for about 60% of $1.5 billion. We asked for what they're happen to be considering, even as we speak, is the Pacific territories, Guam, Saipan. It looks like they're going to be excluded from Buy America, Build America. And we asked to have Alaska included into that, or the Port of Anchorage or the Port of Alaska included in that exclusion. Because with all the ARPA money and all the federal money post-COVID floating around, there's going to be a lot of projects coming on line all over the country. And we could do everything right here. We could have the engineering done. We could have the permitting done, and we're getting there. We get a political alignment. But if the steel, if we're down the list on ordering steel, we're in big trouble. The whole thing stops. And it could stop to the point where even our permitting starts to expire. And so our ask is that we're excluded, just like Guam and Saipan looks like they're going to be, from Build America, Buy America, and allow us then to go right into non-American steel. And I think is what we're speaking about is, Korean, South Korean, or possibly Turkish steel. We don't care as long as it's good quality steel. And we move forward and get our port built, because at the end of the day, we've got to fixate on the target, and the target is food security at the soonest possible moment in time. And I would like to add, if I haven't already, if you go to our Facebook page, there's a QR code there. We just created that yesterday, and day before yesterday, and it was for the secretary. You can click on that QR code and watch a video that we created. We flew a drone a week and a half ago. We flew a drone underneath the docks to at the extremely low tides, so we can show the public, so we can show the secretary the severity of the damage that is going on well below normal tide lines, below the water line. And it will shock, I think, anyone who sees it. And to the point of when I mentioned it to the The secretary, when we were on the docks in the admin building, which sits on the docks, says, "This is what's supporting you right now." He kind of got the picture at that point. And we're running huge trucks. We're docking huge ships up to that structure, and it's in dire need of repair. And we're simply asking for the federal government to step in and help us with the permitting process. We did ask for some waivers, or not waivers, but for streamlining on the federal permitting process, and to hopefully go back to a year and a half ago to the beluga whale exclusionary zone and shrink that down, because they just, what I believe is, arbitrarily expanded that zone. And they made it much, much bigger going up your area towards up the inlet. And if a beluga is spotted in there, we have to stop construction. And and then until the belugas just pack up and leave, we can't do any construction. Well, we only have about a 4-month construction window. And to shrink that, and we've had this happen before, shrink it by 2 months, so in half. We can't be facing that kind of threat. And we're just asking for a little bit of leeway on those kinds of things, and we hope we get to them. So and he was very receptive.
So it sounds like it was a fruitful trip. Do you get the sense that you have buy-in from Senator Murkowski, Senator Sullivan, Mary Patola as well? Are all of you kind of on the same page as this? And does that help create momentum for maybe some things in the Fed sector to happen that otherwise wouldn't?
Well, remember, there's no right or left on this issue. There's no Republicans, there's no Democrats on this issue, and there is zero daylight between the federal delegation, the state legislature, and because remember, the legislature ponied up last year and gave us the single largest appropriation in the history of the state, $200 million. The state is all in. We committed the city to $165 million. The state, the city, the legislature, the delegation, the assembly, the mayor, everyone is on the same page, marching in lockstep. That's what we have to have. That's one of those rare moments in Alaska politics, and we need to take advantage of that and move forward. And we just want that federal component on the permitting, on the financing to step up and help us out. And quite frankly, as Ted Stevens told me this one-on-one once in a meeting I had with him. He says, we built this country from east to west, and he says the lower 48, they got their bridges, they got their interstate system, and he says just because Alaska and Hawaii are last doesn't mean we don't get our our fair share. And he says if they want to start cutting, let's cut federal spending. He says that's fine, I'm all for it. He says, well, you start in the east, and he said start in the 13 colonies. Start working east to west, cut, and he says when they get to me and Daniel, and he meant Inouye, Senator, when they get to me and Daniel, we'll take our cuts. But and I have to follow that ethos. That was a bit of an epiphany to me personally, and because I'm a fiscal hawk, but at the end of the day, if you look at the timing of it, and Senator Murkowski gets this, Senator Sullivan, he gets it, and so does Mary. This is our time. It is our time to ask the federal government for help on a structure that supports the military. There is no Arctic strategy if this port fails, because we project force in the Pacific through this port over these docks, and these docks are in dire need of help. The plan is in place. The engineering is moving ahead. The politicians, everyone's in place. Now it's time for the federal government to step up and, quite frankly, do their part. And I think they're very receptive to that. We're not getting resistance. It's just Washington has its own set of problems, and they got to work through their family squabbles to get to the answer.
Well, it sounds like that has been a very fruitful trip for not only the municipality of Anchorage, but all of Alaska, because it probably puts the Port of Anchorage one step closer to being fixed. Do you have any last minute thoughts before we head out here? I want to be respectful of your time.
Right. Well, the other thing we made, and I when I had a piece of his time one-on-one, I made an ask that, quite frankly, really impacts Alaska, and it's on the aviation side of things. The federal government is trying to eliminate, and this is very pertinent, 100 low lead gas without having a marketable, viable substitute. And we're already paying, general aviation is paying about $7, $6.90 to $7.10 a gallon for aviation fuel. It gets exponentially worse in the bush. And I've heard as high as $17 or $18 a gallon. I'm just telling you, interrupting that supply chain, as bad as it is, interrupting it by imposing an artificial, not economically viable fuel mechanism to us without all the testing, because we haven't even completed the testing on this fuel on the various compression engines. This could be devastating to us and to commerce. We simply, I asked him for help on that, and we made some other FAA asks that were not quite as essential as that. So he was very receptive. He knew about them. He's very informed. He knew about our challenges, and now the politicians in D.C. Need to come on board. I think they will. And under the leadership of Sullivan and Murkowski and Peltola, I think we'll get to it.
Well, that's good. I want to thank you for joining us here, Dave. And it's going to be awesome to see this unfold and, watch a port get built. I think that's going to happen. I think that you have the right team in place. You got the right people excited about it. And I think it's going to happen. So I want to thank you for joining.
I want to encourage, John, I want to encourage people. The port is being built. Previous administrations built the petroleum cement terminal. That is seismically secure. It survived without incident the 2018 earthquake. So we have petroleum security. We have cement security. We don't have food and bulk good and supply security, and that's what we're working on. So this is the next few phases. And so I want to encourage people, we're kind of getting things done here, but the food component is what I'm focused on. And at the end of the day, this is about saving our port. We're not building a Cadillac. We're not making it bigger. Actually, the port's going to be slightly smaller than it is. It's just going to be new and seismically secure, and therefore food security.
I love it. Well, I want to encourage folks, if you just caught the tail end of this, to go back and listen to the whole thing. You'll get to hear about the Secretary of Transportation's stop here in Alaska and some cool things that have happened because of it. So if you want to help keep the lights on here at Must Read Alaska, go to mustreadalaska.com. On the right-hand side, there's a donate button. Every $5, $10, $100 helps. And we want to thank Mayor Dave Bronson for coming on the show. Until next time, I'm John Quick from somewhere in Alaska. Thank you, Mayor.